Hello viewers, we are talking on Life Skill for Graduate course on Swayam MOOCs. We'll be talking about the module 2 self-awareness. This lecture 1 will be dealing with self-awareness, meaning and definition. As you know, human beings are complex and diverse. To become more self-aware, we should develop understanding of ourselves. Self-awareness includes our personality, our personal values, habits, emotions, psychological needs, etc. Personality is something which does not change basically. When we have a personality, we continue with it for all of our lifetime. But understanding our personality can help us to find situations in which we will thrive and help us to avoid situations in which we will experience stress. For instance, if you are an introvert person, then it will be better that you do not go for jobs which includes marketing or sales. If you are very introvert, if you're extrovert, then you can go for a jobs which include sales and marketing. Awareness of your personality helps you to analyze decisions which you take. Another aspect of self-awareness is values. That is, the values which we have, the priorities which we have in our life. First of all, our priority is that we are there for our children, we are there for our relationships with our near and dear ones, and then we have our values towards our organization and our country. So, it is important that we take care of these values. We see that which value is more important when and try to work accordingly. Then we have certain habits. Our habits are behaviors which we repeat routinely and automatically. Although we would like to possess the habit which help us to interact effectively and manage others, we have to identify such habits which decrease our effectiveness and which increase our effectiveness, and practice those habits more which increase our effectiveness. Then we have needs. As Maslow and other scholars have identified, we have certain basic needs which when fulfilled, then we go to needs like self-actualization and the higher order needs. So it is important to know ourselves. We must know our personality and what we know about us. This introductory lecture on self-awareness will be dealing with introduction, meaning of self-awareness, and various definitions of self-awareness. As I have already said, self-awareness is something which we have to know about ourselves. So, we have read in the previous lecture that WHO identified 10 basic skills which are important for an individual to live a adaptive and truthful life. These basic skills were named as the life skills. Now, these life skills have to be mastered by the students, which can help them develop their personality and which can help them to adapt to their situations. And one of the very important skill which WHO identified was self-awareness, because it helps us to recognize our character, identify our strength, weaknesses, likes, dislikes, and desire. So, it is evident from the statement that self-awareness is part and parcel for dealing with our everyday challenges along with the knowledge of ourself, the real me. But before understanding and developing self-awareness, we need to understand the deeper meaning of the concept of self-awareness. If you see what is self-awareness, as I have already explained earlier, it is our personality, it is our habits, it is our values, and it is our needs. All these come in a package, and this is a parcel which we have when we are talking of self-awareness. If you see the psychological concept, it talks of the psychological well-being, the personal development. Then self-awareness is viewed differently in different culture. Self-awareness is conscious experience of all living being be it human or other animals. It stands for the ability to focus on one's attention on oneself. Every day we are saying that we have to keep ourselves, first of all, happy, fulfill, content, and then only we can contribute towards society. So, information about oneself is actively identified, processed, and stored when we talk of self awareness. Self awareness includes paying attention to oneself and consciously knowing one's attitudes and disposition. This information helps us to process ourselves in different situations. If we see the theoretical basis of self awareness, we see it comprises of awareness of sensations, emotions, feeling, thoughts, physical bodies, and relationship with others. So, knowing ourselves, knowing our attitudes in a situation with others is what is known as self awareness. It is, if you see at self awareness, Daniel Goleman was talking of emotional intelligence. And while talking of emotional intelligence, he said that key to understand emotions is when you understand yourself. And he identified that emotional intelligence can be viewed in four aspects. It is self awareness, social awareness, relationship management, and self management. Emotional awareness is recognizing one's emotions and their effect, what it can be. So, while you are talking of emotional intelligence, while you are managing yourself, you are interacting with others, you are emotionally stable if you know your emotions, your personal needs well. Self awareness, basically, if you see, it involves emotional self awareness, which is recognizing one's emotions and their effect. Accurate self awareness, which is understanding one's strength and limitations, because as we were mentioning, where to what extent you can contribute depends upon your strengths and weaknesses. And self confidence, which is a strong sense of one's self worth and capabilities. If you can see, we can distinctly say there are two types of self awareness, which is the public self awareness and private self awareness. When you're talking of public self awareness, we can say that public self awareness is when we are interacting with others. Public self awareness can be described the increased awareness of one's own appearance in social or public context. It entails paying attention to one's outlook, actions when we come in contact with other people, like giving a speech, going to a job interview, engaging with people from different social groups, are examples of scenario when this state frequently occurs. When someone feels that I am being watched, evaluated, and scrutinized, or you can say, or judged in context to others. As people attempt to project a positive image of themselves, it may result in action meant to fit with social norms and expectations. Generally, what happens while we are interacting with others, we try to put forward a model behavior which many times may not be our actual self. So, excessive public awareness can promote good social behaviors like being courteous or following the rules, but it can also cause anxiety, self consciousness, or the fear of being judged, which can prevent people from expressing themselves authentically. So, when you are seeing that you are in a camera, then you have to project a model behavior. Many times this behavior may not be your ideal behavior. That is why when we see public figures, we see that they have to put forth a best possible view or best possible scenario or best possible looks in front of the camera, which may not be real selves, and many times this causes anxiety, stress in them. They are not able to face this public gaze for a long time, and this may cause certain amount of disbalance in their behavior, which has to be seen and which has to be done accordingly. Then we also see that social psychology ideas about impression management and self-presentation, which highlight how people modify their behavior to conform to the perceived norms, are closely related to this idea. Many times when we see, like if you say you are a teacher, you have to portray certain ideal behavior, you have to portray certain ideal looks which may not actually conform with your basic identity, basic personality, and this may cause imbalance. So many times when you are talking of social relationships, when you are talking of social harmony, you have to change your behavior accordingly. Maintaining social harmony and individual well-being requires striking balance between internal self-awareness, which is central to one's own ideas, and public self-awareness. Attention to public self may cause behavior to become more consistent with social expectations, and many times what happens, we change ourselves according to the social norms because we have kept ourselves so much as per social norms that the innate personality or the innate look or the innate individual goes away. So that is very important. We have seen, again, as I was giving examples of actors, what happens because they put in an image in front of the public, after some time they become like that. Either they become model, or they become a villainous, or they become absurd. That is because the image which they have been portraying in the front of the public. Many times those actors who play negative roles are actually best people you come across, but what happens, that public image of them becomes very diverse from their actual being. So that is how the public self-image or self-awareness influences your innate character, and you change according to them. The private self-awareness is very different, and to maintain that private self-awareness is very important for a person to keep himself away from the scrutiny which is there in the public domain. Private self-awareness describes a condition of increased attention to one's innermost feelings, thoughts, and physical experiences. This introspectively focuses frequently on activities like journaling, meditation, intense emotional experiencing, promoting seclusion or intrusion. People who are privately self-aware may be more able to comprehend their own values, motivations, views, and their own personality because they focus on themselves more. And in the long run, many times these people who have been focuses on their private self-awareness may be more happy in the larger context. When you see, when people assess how well their actions match with their inner standard, they may become more self-aware and truthful. Private self-awareness, meanwhile, can sometimes be unsettling if it draws attentions to one's own shortcoming or unresolved problems. For instances, recognizing feeling of guilt or inadequacy may cause emotional anguish, but it can also spur problem solving and personal development. The idea of fundamental psychology, because it affects how people control their emotion, govern their behavior, and negotiate their identities. Through cultivating equilibrium between introspection and external environment, private self-awareness can assist individuals in strengthening their bond with themselves while preserving positive relationship with others. Attention to private self may result in behavior that reflects personal attributes. So, while we are talking of private self-awareness, we have to see that there is a balance between private and public self-awareness. If an individual has to be a balanced individual in terms of the society, as we were saying earlier, that when we are saying emotional balance or when we are saying personal balance, then it is in context with emotion and society. Now we will be looking after some of the definitions of self-awareness. As we can say, the various people have defined self-awareness in different ways. Some basic definitions of self-awareness, as given by many organizations and people, are discussed here. First of all, we take definition of UNICEF, which says self-awareness refers to accurately assessing one's feelings, interest, values, strength and weaknesses in context of one is living and thereby building self-identity. The another definition given by UNESCO is self-awareness is the ability to reflect on one's own role in the local community and the global society, to continually evaluate and further motivate one's action and to deal with one's feeling and desire. Erickson 2009 has said self-awareness is having conscious knowledge about oneself, about one's belief, assumptions, organizing principles and structures of feelings and their consequences in one's day-to-day lived experiences. Central Board of Secondary Education 2010 has defined self-awareness as our ability which includes our recognition of self or our character, of our strength, weaknesses, desires and dislike. SWDD, a sort of analysis of our strength, weaknesses, desires and dislikes. Developing self-awareness can help us to recognize when we are stressed or feel under pressure. It can also often be a prerequisite to effective communication and interpersonal relationship, as well as developing empathy for others. Actually, Central Board of Secondary Education has said that self-awareness is the basic life skill which is required for all other life skills which we have to develop, adapt or practice in our daily life. Taylor says self-awareness is a process wherein a person makes assessment about himself or herself and how he or she can be perceived by others. Ashley and Ritter Perlman in 2012 said, self-awareness is an inwardly focused evaluative process which individual make self or standard comparison with the goal of better knowledge and improvement. Sutton et al. 2015 said self-awareness can be identified as a higher level concept which includes the extent to which people are consciously aware of their interactions or relationships with others or with their internal states. Rashid 2015 said self-awareness is a continuous process of understanding and knowing of one's own identity, beliefs, thoughts, traits, motivations, feelings, and behaviors to recognize how they can affect others. In addition, it involves objectively examining one's personal belief, attitude, strengths, and limitation. It involves the cerebral exercise of introspection. This attribute reflects the cognitive exploration of one's own thoughts, feelings, beliefs, values, behaviors, and their feedback from others. Lawrence et al. In 2018 said self-awareness is conceptualized as the extent to which individuals are consciously aware of their internal states and their interactions with others. Carden Jones and Passmore said Self-awareness consists of a range of components which can be developed through focus, evaluation, and feedback, and provide an individual with an awareness of their internal states, that is, emotions, cognitions, psychological responses, that drives their behaviors, their beliefs, values, and motivation, and awareness of how this can impact others. So, as we have said, if we summarize all these definitions, we can say that self awareness is a process to know oneself extrinsically and intrinsically, covering all the strengths and the weaknesses, along with acknowledging the possible measures to overcome the weaknesses without being overconfident of the existing strength an individual had. There is a very common example of self awareness where people may not be knowing how powerful or strengthful they are or how contributing they are to the society. The example is of the mythical character Hanuman. When you refer to Ramayana, the Indian epic, we see that Hanuman was one person who had to be told that how powerful or how strengthful he was. He did not know that he could cross the ocean with a leap. Actually, what happened there, the story goes on, when he was a young child, what he did, he thought that the sun was an apple and he tried to eat it. Now, when he ate sun, he was so powerful because it was said that he was a child of the air, and he was so powerful that he ate sun. Now, what happened when the sun was being eaten by Hanuman, or when it was in his mouth, the world became dark. People did not have any light, people did not have any heat. So, what happened? People got worried. All of them ran towards Hanuman and requested him to leave sun. Now, Hanuman was a child then. He thought this is an apple and I don't want to leave it. So, what he did not leave it. Then the gods came, and it was said they forced him to leave the sun, which he thought was an apple, and then they gave him a punishment that he will forget all his powers until somebody reminds him. Now, what happened to this? When this was told to Hanuman, he forgot all the powers, and at the time when the bridge had to be crossed, or when the sea had to be crossed during the Lanka expedition, he was reminded by Jamavant that he had the power. He could become large, he could become small, he could cross the sea with one leap. He had that strength of 100 people which were there, and he had that character in him that he could conquer anything if he wanted. When he was reminded of that, he realized that he could do what he could do, and what he did. He took a leap and he crossed towards Lanka, and then the story goes on. Then he burned Lanka, and he had the power to bring back Sita on his own, but he realized that it had to be done in the hands of Rama. And during the whole Ramayana, after that, we see various contributions of Hanuman. He went and brought Sanjeevani booty from the mountains in one night because the life of Lakshman was at stake, and only he could do it. He did that. Then he also took he killed various demons which were there, and all of them were afraid of Hanuman. But this could not have been done if Hanuman had not been reminded of his self-worth, his self-powers, his own contribution which he could do. So, as we have now seen that to know our own strength, our own weaknesses and to have an analysis of them, our habits, our personality, our values, all of these contribute towards your own self, and to know it in a balanced way is very important. And we have to see that knowing it can only contribute to the development of an individual in a wholesome way. If we do not know oneself in the wholesome way, not knowing our strengths, not knowing our weaknesses, not knowing our threats, not knowing our challenges, the SWOT analysis which we have to do to know ourselves is very important. People at important positions should be self-aware of their own strength, their own power, their own limitation, because these are the people who make changes in one's life or towards the life of the others who are there in their surrounding. Therefore, knowing about self-awareness, developing the concept of self-awareness, interestingly, understanding yourself is one way to keep oneself happy and contributing towards the society. The challenges which we have, why people are becoming more and more anxious, they are becoming more and more mentally stressed, is because we do not try to do what we are capable of. We try to run the rat race, which is not required in today's life. And being self-aware can help us to develop properly, contribute effectively to the world, and be an effective individual in relation to society and ourselves. And thank you so much for knowing and hearing about yourself.